So recently I was stalking through Twitter, and I came across a post by Hens, stating that due to all the recent buffs to low tier killers, Ghostface is now officially bottom tier killer. Now, when I first thought this, I thought, wow, I know he's not that great, I know he's on the lower side, but bottom 3, that might be a bit harsh. But the more I think about it, putting Ghostface up side by side to other killers, thinking, is Ghostface better than this killer? Are they better than this killer? Maybe there's some truth to it. So let's dig a little deeper, shall we? Now, there's been a bunch of new killer buffs over the past few months to killers that many would have originally considered bottom tier. Bottom tier killers originally such as Freddy and Legion. However, the killer buff that I would like to focus on recently is Myers. Why? Because Myers and Ghostface are very similar killers power-wise. While this might be a bit of an exaggeration, I often think of Myers as a simpler Ghostface. Instead of managing 4 different stalks, like Ghostface, Myers only has to have one large stalk that affects everyone. 2 major aspects of Ghostface's mechanical skill, being lean stalking, being able to efficiently lean off objects, and hiding from reveals, isn't a thing for Myers. So with that in mind, let's go over the pros and cons of both killers here. Michael Myers takes longer to expose, but his expose affects all survivors in the game. But for Ghostface, he has a much faster expose, but in return, he has to stalk each survivor one by one. Don't forget to factor reveals in this though, which would put Ghostface's power on cooldown for 17 seconds if you get revealed. If you play Ghostface correctly, or if you play it perfectly, you'll be able to get an expose faster, but if you get revealed, you might have been able to get tier 3 as Myers in less time than it would have to wait out your cooldown as Ghostface. Myers also is much stronger in chase. He gets a much faster vault and also a much longer lunge. While Ghostface doesn't have as much chase base kit aside from crouching mid-loop, he does have more stealth. So you can make a jump on a survivor. It could save you a lot of time looping a pallet instead if you can just get the down right off the bat, right off the gen or wherever you find you. He can catch you off guard a bit as well because survivors don't really know when they're stalked as much as they do for Myers because it takes much less time. But for the most part, that's mostly just about a bit of the mental aspect for both of these killers. The fundamental aspect for, I guess, Myers versus Ghostface in terms of chase power, Myers definitely has a bit more of an advantage. Now, this doesn't factor in add-ons. Ghostface does have a few add-ons that definitely could change the tide, such as Drop Leg Knife Sheath, which does give you a bit of haste after you expose a survivor, which, when you're using that definitely could help you out a lot in chase. But if we're going to be factoring Ghostface's best add-ons, we sort of have to do the same for Myers, and once you look at Myers' add-ons, yeah, Myers kind of wins by a landslide. Myers overall also just has much better add-ons compared to Ghostface. The majority of Ghostface's add-ons are only ever so slightly buffing the killer. Compare Ghostface's 10% faster stalk speed add-on, Philly, to Myers' 25% faster stalk speed add-on. Or Ghostface's 10-second longer expose duration add-on to Myers' 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds longer tier 3 add-ons. Keep in mind both killers' tier 3 or expose is both 60 seconds long, so the 40-second longer one is 4 times stronger. That's also not factoring in infinite tier 3 too, that is its own can of worms. I know that Ghostface 25% extra stalk speed would be absolutely broken on him, considering Ghostface, it's just one shorter stalk. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Ghostface's add-ons do not significantly enhance the killer in any way. They're only slight tweaks. A lot of this is partly because a lot of Ghostface's buffs over the years have just been making his add-ons progressively base kit. Ghostface's add-on on release was 30 seconds long. Then they brought it down to 24 seconds, and the cooldown add-ons, they nerfed those accordingly, because those were the only add-ons people ever used on him back then. Then they increased the expose duration and overhauled a lot of his add-ons, which this was a really nice buff at the time. And while the majority of the add-ons were fairly useless, older Ghostface add-ons were even worse. This was a very nice improvement. When this wasn't enough to buff the killer, they slightly buffed his crouch movement speed and reduced his cooldown again to 20 seconds, and also reducing the cooldown add-ons accordingly again. Then they did this again for the third time, and they reduced his cooldown to 17 seconds, and nerfed his Warley's Matchbook add-on to make up for that, and also buffed his Stalk Speed base kit and nerfed Billy to make up for that. In the upcoming PTB too, they're also reducing his base terror radius to 24 meters, which, while is absolutely appreciated, it's still going to do very little to improve the killer, considering he is probably the most stealthy killer in the game. So you're going to be in stealth for most of the game anyways. It's going to be a nice change for when you do get revealed, and it's going to make the crouch movements, the crouch add-on that reduces his terror radius better, because you can combo that with Monitor, and you can do some fun things with that. But for the most part, this isn't going to help him much at all. For the most part, all of his buffs have mostly just accomplished making Ghostface less add-on reliant, and also making him less punishing for new Ghostface players, who may struggle with getting revealed regularly, but they don't really do much in regards to making the killer much stronger. He's always been a fairly weak killer. It's an endless cycle of Ghostface not having much add-on variety, leading to Ghostface players only picking from 1 or 2 add-ons, so the devs see that and they nerf those add-ons and make them partially base kit, but they still don't address the fact that he doesn't have much of a pool of add-ons to choose from. Like, don't get me wrong, base kit Ghostface feels great right now. He's far less add-on reliant, he doesn't need Philly for greater stalk speed, but the only problem is that now that people don't need to bring Philly to get value out of Ghostface, they don't really have much to replace it with, because he doesn't really have much options. Really, his only good add-ons are Drop Leg Knife Sheath, which gives you faster haste after exposing, Driver's License, which blocks gens when you're exposing them, and Outdoor Security Camera for info after you down someone who's exposed. I know there are some decent ones, but those are the only ones I'd really consider pretty good. The other ones are just sort of like good, but you know, they're nothing crazy. And those ones, there's only like 1 or 2 of those, I'd say. Now, with all that in mind, Ghostface may truly be bottom tier. So that leads us to the next topic of discussion. How can we fix this? Maining Ghostface for over 10,000 hours, I've had a lot of time to think about how I'd improve on my favorite killer in a way that doesn't affect what I and a lot of people love about him as well. The fact that he's an M1 killer and doesn't really have anything in chase nor mobility to go around the map is definitely one of the main drawbacks to his low tier. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to improve on this without changing the killer drastically, which I don't think would be a good idea, and I think many people would agree. So here are some of my improvements on his power. For mobility, one of my suggestions is to give Night Shroud a mechanic that allows you to traverse the map faster when out of line of sight of any survivor. Not only could this improve his map pressure, this idea also rewards playing around Ghostface's stealth and sort of playing in the shadows where you're pouncing on your prey. It'll allow you to reposition yourself to different parts of the map to catch survivors off guard without costing you a lot of time. If you just took a survivor, instead of beelining straight to the next survivor on a generator from the same direction where they'd expect you to come from, you can choose to take the extra time to wrap around the edge of the map and catch them from behind, because generally they wouldn't be expecting you to come from that side. Just to clarify, this ability would only work when you're completely out of line of sight of survivor and won't work in chase. So don't worry about trying to reveal him in chase as the survivor. It's not going to be the same mechanic as revealing Ghostface, which I know can be a bit finicky. I sort of think of this as like a bit of sort of like Weeping Angels, you know, that sort of idea of the killer, where it's like when you're completely out of line of sight, you can't see the survivor as well. That's when you go a little bit speedy. Sort of like the Houndmaster's mechanic, where you can, the scout mechanic, but just you can't use it in chase whatsoever. Now, for my next idea, it might sound a little bit ironic, considering one of my main complaints was that Ghostface buffs in the past have mostly entirely just been making their add-ons partially base kit. I think base kit Drop Leg Knife Sheath to some degree for Ghostface is a little overdue. Killers getting a short boost of haste after using their power has sort of become the standard for a lot of killers. You know, Sadako gets a speed boost after exiting a TV, Trapper gets a short boost after placing a trap, Knight gets it with his guards, and so on. Knowing when to also time your expose when you're using drop leg to secure down at a loop, like the second they pass that pallet, that's when you activate it, is also another fun component for Ghostface, which I absolutely love. It also is a great add-on for jumping a survivor in stealth. Overall, it's a great add-on for him. And I think making it partially base kit, whether that be making it 5% base kit and drop leg adds another 5% to be base like 10%, or just making it 10% base kit and changing the add-on with something else entirely. Either one, I guess, you know, it's something you'd probably have to test, see what works. I think would be really good changes for the killer. Now, moving on to my next point for Ghostface is his add-ons. You wouldn't be able to make drop leg partially base kit without giving him some other add-ons to choose from, or else that's just gonna make another cycle where that's one less add-on Ghostface is gonna bring and he still has nothing to choose from. Now, while his new add-ons are much more unique than the old original add-ons he came on release, a good majority of them still really suck. He has a lot of add-ons that only get value after a survivor reveals you, which means you have to let them break you out of your power to get value, and even then all it does is oblivious or something. Really terrible. And then he also, on top of that, he also has a bunch of add-ons that only give mediocre stat buffs that aren't really noticeable unless you're looking side by side to them. And then you have the rest, like Chinch straps, which are just plain terrible. They just do so little, they're not worth bringing at all. Now, I'm not asking for the whole world. I know doing unique add-ons with so many add-ons that you have to make it would be very time consuming for the devs. So here are just a few add-ons or concepts that I thought of, which would be very easy to implement and would be far more useful and fun to use than the add-ons we already have. So 1, add-ons that trigger on hits in stealth rather than add-ons that trigger when someone reveals you. There are so many of these that can be done. One of them, if you hit a survivor in Night Shroud, it reduces the cooldown by 9 or 10 seconds, which is a bit of a halfway point from Warley's Matchbook, which is 6 seconds base kit, or Ghostface Caught on Tape, which gives you your full power back completely once you down someone completely. A bit of a in-between, which could work. Another one is starter spec add-ons. Now, they'd be easy to implement, and many of them are actually useful. Now, I know mangled and broken add-ons are a dime a dozen, but to be honest, they're far more useful than so many of the add-ons that we have for Ghostface, like the ones where they have to break you out of your power to get value. It wouldn't be my dream for them, but, you know, it'll be far better than nothing. So, just the suggestion I'm throwing out there if you just want to, you know, fill up some of the bad add-ons. Another one is, after exposing a survivor, Ghostface can break pallets and bolt windows 30% faster. I sort of thought of this as a bit of a similar thing to Singularity's Overclock, so you can use that to sort of activate it. I thought that could be pretty interesting. And there's also another pool where you could have some add-ons that allow you to partially or perhaps even fully keep your stalk on that survivor after you hit them. Obviously, a lot of this stuff you'd sort of have to test. I know one of the mechanics I like about Ghostface 2 is choosing whether to keep your stalk or expose them. So maybe keeping it as an add-on could be interesting, or maybe doing like keeping it base kit but having an add-on that lets you keep your stalk when you hit them could be something that could be done. Either way, here's a few add-on suggestions that I think could help him out a bit. Now, generally, final taking point from this video. So is Ghostface bottom tier? Maybe. There are a few killers that I probably would say I might be much worse at myself, such as Doctor and all that, but the thing is, I don't really play those killers much myself. So at the same time, I don't know, maybe if I put enough time into those killers instead of Ghostface, I'd probably be much better at them as Ghostface as well. So it's sort of a tricky thing to say, but he's definitely one of the lower tier killers. I definitely agree with that. Now, anyways, if I missed anything, please be sure to let me know. Here's just a few ideas I just brainstormed really quickly. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to make more of these videos soon. I really appreciate you guys sticking by. And also check out my Twitch. I stream every week, a few times a week. So please, that's my main sort of thing for social media, streaming. So please be checking that out. Say hi. We're doing some fun ghosty stuff. If you like Ghostface, this is definitely the place for you. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.